Hello. We'll talk now about an interesting and important architect and designer from Italy, Mario Bellini. Let's read a little bit about him. He was born on February 1st, and that's the reason we talk about him today, because today is February 1st. But we are in 2024. He was born in 1935. So he's 89 years old. He's an Italian architect and designer. He graduated from the Milan Polytechnic Faculty of Architecture in 1959 and began working as an architect himself in the early 1960s. He's the winner, among others, of 8 Compasso d'Oro and prestigious architecture awards, including the Medaglia d'Oro conferred on him by the President of the Italian Republic. Like many other Italian architects, his activities range from architecture and urban planning to product and furniture design. This is true. Many Italian architects do this. This is the man dressed, in an inspired way, usually, like most Italian architects are, with the exception of Renzo Piano, strangely. Anyway, we are looking at Mario Bellini, equally famous as a designer and as an architect. And I think he is very good at both. But like other Italian architects, he also had and has theoretical interests. Let's look at some of his drawings. You can see drawings which are rather utopian in spirit. But I think an architect of some imagination shouldn't turn his back or her back on what we call utopia, or exploring ideas that they are for furniture, or they are for urban planning, for all kinds of activities. Unfortunately, he was marked in a certain segment of his work by postmodernism, and postmodernism did have an unfortunate effect, I think, in architecture, and some important architects couldn't avoid being influenced by it. But he was able to navigate through it, and now he's doing work which has nothing to do in common with what we call, in retrospect at least, postmodernism. Mario Bellini, the thermoelectric power plant of Cassano Dada office building from 1985 to 1990. This was a time when postmodernism was strong, officially acknowledged. The AEM new office is in Cassano Dada. Here it is, the building, and you can see the certain elements that connected with what we call postmodernism. It was in the air, so to speak, a certain kind of building, a certain kind of masonry wall, and we see this in this work as well. Somehow the masonry wall disappear for a number of years from architecture after deconstruction, and including in deconstruction. Maybe it will come back in some form. Some architects like Mario Botta, another Mario, continue to kind of build in this way. But this is Mario Bellini, and it's not a bad building, but it is a little bit predictable. But it's not a building that can be dismissed or ignored. Mario Bellini. Now the Villa Erba exhibition and Congress Center in Chernobyl, in Como, in 1986, 1990, the Villa Erba International Exhibition and Convention Center. You know, it's a building where we employs elements of, you know, typical modern architecture, combined with, you know, certain stylistic elements of postmodernism. But still, there are parts, at least, of the building that are impressive, like this looking upwards towards the dome, towards the ceiling. Um, and the building here it is, you know, it has a certain centrality, a certain symmetry, even the perfect circularity of the grand pavilion, you know, would be questioned by the following movement in architecture, and that is postmodernist. But at that time, in the 80s, it was still, you know, promoted, if not, I mean, more than just accepted. It was promoted. This kind of, um, you know, composition, architectural composition, because the influence of history was still felt towards the end of the 20th century. Architects looked backwards, and that's how postmodernism came into being. And then, of course, came the rebellion of deconstruction, which replaced, you know, moderately nostalgic, sometimes not so moderate, or moderately, you know, nostalgia manifested through postmodernism. So Mario Bellini built these buildings at a time when the anxieties and the, you know, rebelliousness of deconstruction didn't yet arrive. You see, when the entrance into the building, it's questionable from today's perspective. But at that time, it was difficult to have a critical attitude towards it. But there are other elements here, you know, like the glass fluidity that we look at there, which is in kind of a tension or contradiction with what we see on the right, with those pillars, rather solid masonry, and then the predictable, you know, sloping roof, well, built with glass, but still a sloping roof above the entrance. Comfortable architecture, didn't live dangerously, but you know, not the worst architecture in the world, with a rather perceptible level of mundanity, a mundane architecture. And this could explain in part the success of Mario Bellini. Now, the Yokohama Business Park in Japan, also built around the same time, 1987, 1991. Uh, yeah, the stage design uh, architecture, or the architectural stage design that postmodernism staged, uh, is present in this work by Mario Bellini as well. Rather static and representational, emphatically promoting symmetry, uh, but it's still an architecture that that doesn't leave you totally indifferent, and that's a good thing. Interesting that Japan, which had and has remarkable architects, still commissioned and commissions architects from Europe or from the United States to build the Mario Bellini. Now, the new museum of the city of Berlin from 2008 in Germany. Now, this is actually at the Louvre, sorry. I guess I don't have images. I don't know what happened here. Or maybe it was just a project, sorry. Something happened here. I probably didn't find images. I don't think it was built. It was just a project, and I don't have images. This work is in the courtyard of the Louvre in Paris. And you see, Mario Bellini changed from the postmodern architecture that he was practicing. Now he's, later he was exploring the fluidities, parametric design, and so on. And it was built. This was built for the Islamic wing of the Louvre collection. And it's a very fine work. He won the competition. I mean, there is sophistication here and technological know-how. You are going to see pictures also of, the maintenance required by this undulating roofing and its complexities. We can only salute the administration, the leaders of the Louvre Museum in Paris, that they not only that they accepted such a built work there, but they commissioned the architect, and I think it was a competition which he won with this kind of work. Not bad. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that the leaders of the Louvre Museum didn't want to, build something that was, similar to the existing architecture, but something very different. So we have here, a form of dialectics. We have um, an harmony through contrast. I don't know the technicalities about the material used and the geometry, but you can find such information on the web. And here you have these things move, and they allow for maintenance work and replacements of parts that were who knows problematic. It's a very complex work. Just the roof itself. Mario Bellini, a very fine attention to detail, because he was and is a very accomplished designer, industrial designer. I actually like even more the work in the process of becoming, so to speak, like in this picture. Good architecture is an adventure, and here we have an example of such an adventure. There is geometry, but there is also grace, in the sense that the fluidity of the roof is lyrical, it's not rigid, although the parts, as we can see, are triangular. So geometry used in a certain way through parametry arrives at surprising and complex fluidities in the courtyard of the Louvre. Mario Bellini. Here we see clearly that the structure was quite an adventure, and the complexity of it is for all to see. So you see pictures during the construction of this important work in a very important place in Paris. Amanda Levitt did something maybe not very different somehow in spirit and even formally at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. So there is a certain trend to bring in the new in the courtyards or the the empty spaces of some major museums. The Milano Convention Center, here we see again his explorations in the field of textile architecture in a way, and this blanket, architectural blanket, which is thrown on top of a building which is of a different nature. And we can see that so-called different nature of the building underneath the blanket here on the right side, which in my opinion is a little bit bombastic and reminds one of the previous phase in his work, the so-called postmodern phase. But this architectural blanket that covers a large portion of the building is an homage to the present. Mario Bellini in Milan. A hand-drawn sketch and an approximation of what he wanted to do with that roofing. There are other architects, of course, who work in this way, seduced by the new technologies, and also by a need to oppose to the predictability and rigidity of a certain kind of architecture practiced until the arrival of parametric design, to oppose these flowing forms, fluid forms, and it is built. His skill as an architect is obvious here too. Now the structure underneath the blanket is more common and more less inciting, but the blanket is well done, and I guess that's the main tour de force in this building in Milan by Mario Bellini. And here we see a sample of it, in a portion of it. It's the coiffure of the building, it's the veil, it's the it amplifies that transitional moment in the evolution of the building, moving upwards between itself and the sky. It is in a way some kind of a covering of the head of the building, as it is also happening often in human attires, mainly women, but not only women. It's the head of the building, and it takes a flamboyant appearance. The building itself is not so, it's a robust modern building, but above it flows this blanket, if I am to call it so, of a certain complexity. I regret again this part of this building, which I think has almost nothing, has nothing to do with what is happening here. This is an echo or from his previous kind of work that we saw in the 80s that he did. But he changed. And this is, it's haunting him in a way. It's like he couldn't just get rid of it. It would have been great if he did, but he didn't. Anyway, Milan, which has a remarkable number of huge convention centers and exhibition centers and so on. I wonder if they have so many exhibitions and so many conventions there because they have very large buildings dedicated to this purpose. Now, the Taipei Pop Music Center in 2009, this is a project, it was not built. Here we see, I mean, there is a certain opportunism in Mario Bellini. I mean, here we see architectural explorations in a field also, you know, to be found in the work of Bjarke Ingels and others, you know, like architectural hills, if not mountains, covered with green, of course. It was not built, but that's what Mario Bellini proposed in Taipei. It's clear we miss nature, but we try to still hang on to our own nature, and that's what we see here. You know, trying to build mountainous architectures or hill-like architectures. We leveled the, you know, the natural hills and mountains and maybe even mountains in China, for example, but we we tend now to rebuild them ourselves in forms approximated by what we look at here. There is also the snake, the dragon, the hill, the mountain. We can see various things going on here. Maybe I could make a presentation one day about architectural dragons or architectural snakes. A large population, you know, but again, this is a rendering, was not built. An exalted audience, an adulated singer, performer. Now we arrive at this project, the Sheikh Zayed National Museum in Abu Dhabi, another project which was not built. Um, as you can see, Mario Bellini changed his repertoire of projects and visions from the 80s to, you know, the more recent years. Dreams, maybe not totally removed from a certain kind or level of guilt. Uh, should we call them, could we call them guilty dreams in a way? Because maybe the level of innocence is not the highest, in the sense that these visions are do have explicit resemblance to or similarities to other projects done for Abu Dhabi in this case. That was it for the moment about Mario Bellini. So let's wish him happy birthday and thank you for being here today.